not the time for people to be timid. Now is the time for people to be bold. Alright, y'all, this is going to be another Quickie video. I have not been able to upload anything in a while because I've been trying to concentrate on getting a backlog of videos so that I can start releasing the more long-form, highly edited videos on a regular schedule. So there's just so much to talk about, but I'm going to try and focus on what's, in my opinion, the most important. And to me, what the most important thing right now is, how do we prepare to handle whatever may come down upon us? And I don't want to sound like some kind of, doomsdayer or anything like that, but, we are in very uncharted territories, at least for our modern world. And the most important thing, and something I'm personally working on in my life, is organizing a local community group for the purpose of strengthening ourselves and making ourselves more self-reliant, a much more sovereign community. So I have talked to people in my area, and it's pretty obvious a lot of people no longer have any sort of faith in our local or federal government to be there to help us when shit hits the fan. And that was proven to us this entire last year during the riots and burning down of major cities. So what I have done is I have begun to contact people in the local area that I know feel at least a similar way that I do about the situation our society finds itself in. We are just in the beginning stages, but right now I have identified a location for us to be able to meet at least for our first initial meeting. The subject matter for the first meeting will be the major basics, like we live in a desert, so water is a really big deal. How do we ensure that we all have water, or we all can pull the water out of the ground in the aquifer? Because if all the power goes down, those pumps are electric and they won't work anymore. Now, some of them have backup generators, and that could be a solution. However, if we had some kind of crazy EMP attack or a solar flare or Lord knows what, those would also be out of commission. And one idea, one of the people I was already talking to was a bright young kid, actually. This was just an idea that he had for his own property that he's looking at buying. He wants to create a windmill for the well that's located on the land he's looking at buying, so that if that sort of electrical outage happens, he will still be able to pump water out of the ground. That's a great idea, and that's something we're going to be talking about and pursuing that, and how we can do that on maybe a more community level, or help each other retrofit their own property with something similar to that. Another idea is food. How do we all get food? Well, there's multiple ideas we could come up with. We could start community gardening or things like that. Another idea I had was creating a community fund where we all pitch in a small amount of money, and then we can buy one of those large loads of emergency rations or whatever we have access to, so that we at least have food. And the next major topic was communications. If the cellular network were to go down, how do we communicate? Everyone is so dependent upon their cellular communications now. Most people don't even have landlines in their houses anymore. So how do we communicate? Maybe we could set up new landlines. I don't know. But the idea I was having was we need to get back to at least having access to a radio. Ham radio. Radio is a very old technology, and it's very easy to produce in our current modern era. So that is something that we can do. Really, it's all about coming together and sharing ideas with each other. We have to identify who of the people who are willing to cooperate, what sort of skills do we all have, and how can we benefit from those skills and use them to the maximum of their potential. All of us live in very different areas, and those different areas have different types of natural resources, and we need to identify how we can best utilize those resources in the event of an emergency situation. So really, All I can tell you is the things that I'm starting to plan, just to give you small basic ideas of how I'm going about doing it. You are going to have to figure out what it is you can do in your own local area to strengthen yourself and your community. Now, here's the thing. Humans are social creatures, but also can be very lazy creatures. You could have a boulder sitting in the middle of your street, and everyone in your neighborhood will sit there and complain about the boulder sitting in the middle of the street, and wondering, when is someone gonna move that boulder? But it takes a proactive person to go move that fucking boulder. And the magical thing is that when people in the neighborhood see a few people starting to move the ball, get the ball rolling, they will actually want to start helping instead of just sitting there and complaining about it. So every community needs at least one or a small handful of people to start getting the ball rolling on something. And as you get going and you build up momentum, you will find that there's a lot of people who suddenly have interest in contributing. But don't expect somebody else to do the work. You need to start doing the work. If you think it's a good idea, then you need to start it. You need to be the tip of the spear. Even if that tip of the spear action is just getting the conversation going. You may not be the one who has to organize everything, but just bringing up the idea to people may be enough to get them going. Someone needs to be the spark to light the fuse. You know what I mean? So if you're hearing this, I encourage you to consider being that spark. We all have moments where we are struck with sudden ideas, and we think to ourselves, gee, that's a good idea. Someone should really do that. And then we just go on with our lives. If you've had one of those ideas recently, and you think it could help with not just your life, but all of our lives in some way, you need to be the person who steamrolls that idea. Or at least try and give it a shot. Put it out there. Get the ball rolling. Do something. Don't just keep it to yourself. Now is not the time for people to be timid. Now is the time for people to be bold and brave and take action. Because if we do not take action now, we may never ever have the ability to try again. I can already hear it now. Some people saying, I don't need to worry about that. Trust the plan. And sure, maybe the government, or maybe the white hats, or maybe, our favorite Anon has our back. That would be really awesome, and I hope so. But it can't hurt for us to also be self-reliant too. And if we take it upon ourselves to relieve the stress of our community ourselves, then that's just that much less work that the white hats will have to do. We need to work together however we can. We are living in very historic times right now. And this time calls for us to start blazing new paths on a personal level, on a community level, on a global level. We need to start doing things differently and start becoming more self-reliant and truly become the sovereign beings we always claimed we were. This is what we must do to truly change the world. We must create our own new systems to replace those of the old. The old establishment world of centralized power recognizes its own oncoming death, and that is why it is acting so desperately and so viciously. As those old systems fall, our new decentralized systems will rise to take its place and take us into a new era of human civilization.